everyone. My name is Elizabeth Manns, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition Show. We get to do a slightly different opening this week. After 492 shows, we get to change the opening a little bit. This is still the April 1st, 2024 edition of the show, and it is the first one we get to do since the reopening of the hospital. The April 4th Coalition's mission statement is, we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship their jobs overseas. We support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but this custom is continuing. We are going to put the emphasis on Article 23.
Number one, everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment. Number two, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number three, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, which is any form of compensation, ensuring for himself or herself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. Michael.
Number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of his or her interests.
And we're still going to continue to thank Michael Pucknam for airing the audio portions of our show on WNNBLP 107.1. Usually the first one is on Friday at 6 p.m. and then it gets sprinkled throughout as programming is needed. And to the staff here at Northern Berkshire Community Television Corporation, because without their help, we would not be able to produce the show. So thank you to Joanne Hurlbut, David Fabiano, and Nicole A. Brown. And as you may have noticed, we no longer have a sign behind us, Dick.
Yeah.
Because?
Because there's a new headline that came out on, let's see, I think I have it right here. It was Friday, March 29th edition. Welcome back, NARH.
Yep.
It was a headline because they opened the doors on Thursday evening to inpatient beds.
They did, because I was actually up there Thursday afternoon with Tony for physical therapy, and the sign was up there on the door, and got to see the tent where everybody was gathering for the press release.
Yeah, there was a Channel 22 news video. Why don't we show that just to underscore the headline.
North Adams Regional Hospital reopened with a ribbon-cutting ceremony this morning, 10 years to the day that it closed under previous ownership. For the last 10 years, the hospital has only been offering emergency services and outpatient care after the company that previously ran it filed for bankruptcy. Officials say the hospital will now reduce transportation barriers for emergency patients who previously had to travel 20 minutes to Pittsfield for follow-up care. The hospital will have 18 beds and could use up to 25 under special circumstances. Officials say they already have over 40 employees and are working on hiring more, as well as becoming Medicaid certified.
Yeah, that is cool.
That is good. There was an editorial on that same paper on Friday. It said a special kind of healing at a reopened hospital. A decade ago, to the day, a community hospital closed its doors. Its demise was painful for so many in North Berkshire County, and the wound of its absence lingered for too long. But today, the dream of healing back stronger is finally a reality in North Adams. A long hoped-for reopening of the North Adams Regional Hospital promised considerable material benefit to the region's quality of life, from closer and expanded access to life-giving and life-saving medical care for residents, to an infusion of high-caliber jobs in an area hungry for growth. Yet it means so much more. The reinvestment in and revitalization of a virtual institution of the community's infrastructure is a big symbolic victory for the corner of the country, for this corner of the country. It's a sure-footed step forward on the path where many North Berkshire community members understandably felt they were forced to go backward in 2014 when their community hospital abruptly shuttered soon after, Berkshire Health System stepped in to turn the hospital footprint into North Adams campus of Berkshire Medical Center. Maybe I'll just move to the last paragraph.
Yep, you
or-
can move to the last
That's
paragraph.
it.
Yeah.
As is often required for critical changes we want to see in our community, this was a team effort. Representative Neal, who advocated for smarter and more nuanced CMS rules that won't leave rural communities stranded in care deserts. BHS leadership, including CEO Darlene Rodowitz and Vice President of Facility Planning and Construction Management Joe LaRoche, who moved quickly to pursue the critical access designation and developed a reopening plan once it was possible. The Greater North Adams community advocates who never let die the dream of getting their hospital back. All those stakeholders should be proud of this big win for Northern Berkshire. It is because of them that we can happily welcome back North Adams Regional Hospital, whose presence alone brings a special kind of healing. And I also want to thank John Barrett too, because I think he did a great
I
job in
think he did.
advocating and convincing Richard Neal that this was a good.
Worthwhile goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Darlene Rodowitz, I've known her since our kids played hockey together. She was treasurer of the hockey club, so she's a very community-minded. She's North Berkshire resident and has a huge commitment to North Berkshire. So we want to thank her and her leadership, because I can remember we met with her shortly after the hospital closed, and we were advocating for them to get critical care access. And she said, I have the application and it's sitting right on my desk, and when the time is right, I will send that application in.
And
So-
she did.
And she did. So we want to thank her for that.
And we are grateful we are glad to have the hospital back, and we are grateful that she never forgot.
Yeah, and we're going to
promise to
advocate,
send it
and we're
in.
going to advocate for services, because as I told John Barrett, the reason why we were working is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that, citizens are allowed equal access to public services. And we want to get all the public services for all our people here in North Berkshire, and we'll continue to advocate for them. So thank you for all the work, everyone working together.
We look upon it as a first step.
Yes. And we've had another big news day. This was on Wednesday. We talked about it last week, but here it is. Mass MoCA strike is over. Mass MoCA strike is over. So why don't we have a couple videos. Why don't we watch both videos? There's two about the Mass MoCA strike.
Unionized workers at Mass MoCA Museum in North Adams have reached a tentative agreement to end a strike. Union representative telling News 10 that the bargaining committee unanimously approved the agreement, which would increase the minimum hourly wage from $16.25 an hour to $18. Workers earning more than the minimum would receive a 3% raise. Strike began 3 weeks ago after months of contract negotiations. Union leaders say they had no other choice.
No member at Mass MoCA took this decision lightly. Striking an organization that, frankly, they care about a lot and care about their colleagues a lot was a really serious decision for folks to make. And I think the impact of this was felt, greatly, given that a majority of the workers at Mass MoCA are represented in our union.
The museum has not commented. The museum has stayed open during the strike, but some programs had to be postponed. Also in continuing coverage tonight, the staff at Mass MoCA agreeing to ratify a wage agreement. Officials say now that the agreement is in place, more than half of workers who are currently at the minimum hourly rate of $16.25 will immediately increase to at least $18 per hour. The agreement now puts an end to the strike that lasted for 3 weeks.
So that's great news.
That is great news, both for the workers and for Mass MoCA and the community.
Yes.
I mean,
It's a good demonstration of, I think they had a lot of community support, and it's wonderful. It shows the power of standing together and the fact that the union stood strong. Not to say that this is going to alleviate all the problems of those workers, because standing on the line with them and talking to them, there are a lot of people that are really hurting. And we have to do a lot more within our community and within our society to make sure that there's a floor, that people don't have to live drowning in debt. And people who work should not have to worry about feeding themselves and housing themselves and
Or even
keeping
getting the
themselves
gas to
warm,
get to work.
keeping themselves warm, buying medicine, all those things. But, we are the April 4th Coalition, and this is April 1st, and April 4th will be this Thursday. And, we've been doing this show since 2013. The April 4th Coalition has
Hard to
been in
believe,
existence.
on the air for over 12, almost 12 years.
Yeah. We also, we became an organization in 2011. And the first thing that we did is we organized a solidarity march and or demonstration in front of City Hall in solidarity with the Wisconsin workers who were public service employees that went on strike. And it was, the whole theme of that was, it was on April 4th, and it was about Martin Luther King and the fact that he was working with striking sanitation workers when he went to Memphis, and that's where he was killed on April 4th, 1968. So we have a little video from your union. What's the name of your union?
My union is, the abbreviation is AFSCME. It stands for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, and it's a nationwide organization. And I believe the sanitation workers were joining it if they
They were
weren't
trying to be recognized, yeah. So
Trying to
let's watch this
recognize.
video. It's a 10-minute video made by the union about that historical strike.
In February 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, some 1,300 sanitation workers, members of Local 1733 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, began a strike. This wasn't an ordinary strike. We forged together a coalition of the religious community, the civil rights community, and the labor movement. It was a struggle for freedom, for dignity, for decency, for equality.
Back in those days, we had to do this to live. The treatment that we were getting. Sometimes I just feel like tears are coming my eyes.
And we just got tired. We had meeting and discussed it and said, we're going to do something about it. Said there ain't but one thing to do, is just to make our move. And a man has got to have a strong mind to go out in the street, leave his job, go out in the street.
We felt like we would have to let the city know that because we were sanitation workers, we were human beings. The signs that we were carrying said that I am a man, and we was going to demand to have the same dignity and the same courtesy any other citizen of Memphis has.
We are saying that we are determined to be men. We are saying that we are God's children.
After a few days, we found that the strike was more than just a recognition and economic strike. It was a social struggle in this society. We talked, they didn't listen. Management and the establishment here wanted no relationship with unions whatsoever.
The mayor particularly got completely hung up on this one issue, that he was not going to recognize the existence of public unions.
When a public official orders a group of men to get back to work and then we'll talk, and treats them as though they are not men, that's a racist point of view. And no matter how you dress it up in terms of whether or not a union can organize, it's still racism. For at the heart of racism is the idea that a man is not a man.
We thought we had reached an understanding during a meeting of the Public Works Committee. The council will meet tomorrow. Committee Chairman Fred Davis gave us a promise that the council recognize the union and that there'll be some form of dues checkoff for the union.
We were told to meet with the council. When we got there, one of the most
crude charades in the many years I've represented working people took place.
When they told me there'd be an honest council meeting today, and you and I would have a chance to talk to this council, I regret I believed them. They lied to me and they lied to you.
We decided to march to the Claiborne Temple. And as soon as we got out there, some of the police officers, not all of them, began hassling some of our folks, and I remember intervening and promised them faithfully that these men did not believe in violence, that the Union did not believe in violence. We started a march, and we moved down there, and police cars we used to harass us and push us around, and this was a turning point.
I don't know who it was. Somebody hollered and said, break it up. And they just ran on us. And honest for God in heaven. And they sprayed so much of that stuff down my collar until I could feel it look like running down my back.
My eyes, they shot that stuff in both my eyes. Couldn't see nothing.
We built into our planning the escalation principle in order to help momentum build. Mass meetings every night, daily marches of the workers and clergy, and then sit-ins at the City Hall, which resulted at least one time in major arrests of many of us. In the meantime, I had been talking with Dr. Martin Luther King about his support and about his coming in order to both identify the struggle with himself and to help the people in the community identify the struggle in terms of a nonviolent campaign.
You are demanding that this city will respect the dignity of labor. So often we overlook the worth and the significance of those who are not in professional jobs, of those who are not in the so-called big jobs. But let me say to you tonight that whenever you are engaged in work that serves humanity and is for the building of humanity, it has dignity and it has worth. You are reminding not only Memphis, but you are reminding the nation that it is a crime for people to live in this rich nation and receive starvation wages.
On March 28th, Dr. Martin Luther King led a march here in Memphis in support of the sanitation workers. This is one of the few times when his staff did not organize the march. Some of the young people saw this as an opportunity to demonstrate their frustration and what they considered the slowness with which the community leadership was moving. They began to break out windows and disrupt the march. This gave the policemen an opportunity to move in, to break up the march in an effort to discredit Dr. Martin Luther King and the local leadership.
When we came back downtown the following day, really to be confronted with tanks and half-tracks and jeeps and National Guardsmen with bayonets all over the place, it really sort of provided the classic kind of confrontation between striking workers with nothing more than a picket sign and really what was the might of the armed forces of this city. It was frightening in one aspect, and where the least bit of wrong action could really have triggered a situation that would have been tragic for many people. Somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for rights.
At the time that I heard the news of Dr. King's death, we were still struggling to arrive at an acceptable compromise. So many times in issues of this type, a little bit more leadership, a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more vision, and a little bit more flexibility would enable you to deal with a problem. And yet, this time we were not, and we had to have the tragedy to bring us to our senses.
The City of Memphis recognizes the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, Local 1733, as the designated representative for certain employees in the Division of Public Works.
The day that strike was over, that was the best part of my life.
All in favor of the recommendation, let it be known by saying aye.
And I'm telling you the truth, you talking about a bouquet. It was black, white, they tied up on that stage, hugging and crying and hollering.
I win a whole lot in this strike because respect, that's the most important thing. They respect you as a man.
Got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Oh, yeah, and the sad thing is it's so relevant.
Yeah,
Today.
talking about starvation wages.
And
Yeah.
treating people with dignity and respect and keeping them safe on the job.
Yeah.
Oh, we're constantly repeating the cycle because one side gets intransigent and doesn't listen, which is unfortunate. And we have a presidential candidate potential presidential candidate who could take us even further back running at this time.
Yeah.
Because that gentleman definitely has no respect for anyone. So,
Except himself.
but well, I'm not sure he respects himself.
Michael,
honest.
what was your reaction to the video?
What?
What was your reaction to that video? What stood out for you?
Well, the speech itself. And because the man knew what to say to the right people, and to get people listening, and he got them to pay attention, to realize, to do it the way it's been done, it's not right. Because the people on the bottom never get to move up. We always get kicked down every time somebody says it. They panic over it. They're so worried that you're going to somehow get a dime away from them.
Well, that's always the fear of people in power is as you let go, if you let go of something, you're going down a slope where you lose.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it doesn't have to be that that they lose. It could be that they gain if they thought about
Right.
it.
Right. I remember one of our first shows we did over 10 years ago, and we had Chris Rock. He talked about minimum wage. He said, minimum wage, your boss is saying, I'd pay you less, but it's against the law.
Basically, yeah.
You know what I mean? But people who are making the minimum wage or low wage jobs, they take that money and they put it right back into the economy. It makes the whole economy work when you put that money in the hands of working people.
And that's actually what everything in the Biden administration is proving is that because they're investing money in creating jobs. Unemployment is down, et cetera, and people are putting money back into the economy.
Yeah.
It's in a boom. It's in a 4-year boom at this point.
I thought from the film that I got was important is that I am a man, the discrimination part, and all the police that were with guns and rifles, and I mean, that wasn't called for. You don't see that at the picket line over here at Mass Mocha, So I think there's some discrimination there also.
Oh, definitely, because that was sad. That was in the South.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Malcolm X said the South is anywhere south of the Canadian border.
Yeah.
Well, it's true.
we went for
But you know, you were in a state where was part of the Confederacy when that was
Yeah.
going on. And
we went to a march with a housing fund, something like that.
You know, and I'm not saying it can't happen up here. It can.
And it's tough.
Yeah, you don't.
But the problem here, I found out once when we did it, I told people, now here's the catch, folks. Don't anybody do anything stupid. I said, this horse, this pig, got bumped into me one time. And he's trying to give me a message. And I got the message, my God. I couldn't be that. No, so was that.
Right.
We did a march that nobody got out of line. We were kind of nervous. We all
Right.
did it for the
That's why, you know, we have, you know, they were very, the reason where there was rioting, they said that day, was the people people on Martin Luther King's staff did not want him to go to Memphis.
No, they didn't.
They didn't want him to go. They thought he was going, you know, going to see these striking sanitation workers was taking him off course. He was getting ready for the march on Washington that they were going to have this summer. And they said, no, we got to work on this. You can't go there. But he felt a need to stand with those striking sanitation workers. And they said in the video that his staff didn't come and organize the march.
Right.
Because as we know from even in our brochure, we have about the nonviolent, like volunteers sought to join the nonviolent army. There were 10 commandments on that. You know, you had to sign a pledge and how you would
behave at
the march. And he didn't have that organization with him at the time. But you need that. If you're going to have a demonstration, you have to pledge to be nonviolent. The only way that you're going to be heard is through nonviolence. Violence will not get your message across.
No, it just drowns it out because it evokes emotions in people that you're trying to reach that you don't want.
Right. And number 8 said, refrain from violence of the fist, tongue, or heart. You know, it says, you know, observe with both friend and foe ordinary rules of courtesy. You know, it's very important. Remember always that the nonviolent movement in Birmingham and elsewhere seeks justice and reconciliation, not victory.
Correct.
Justice and reconciliation. You know, that in order to have reconciliation, you have to have respect for the people on the other side. And, you know, the show's winding down, so.
It is. I don't think we're going to get to the final video.
No, but it's sort of a rerun of what we already saw.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, enjoy your April 4th, you know, and
remember
what we lost
why
56
that-
years ago.
Exactly.
Quite a leader.
We did, and we're still waiting for another one to come along.
Yeah, well, it's up to us. We all have to take on that mantle. Could have been me, but instead it was you, so I'll keep doing the work you were doing as if I were 2.
Very good.
Yeah.
See you next week.
See you next week.
There's power in a factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in a union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood. The strikes of the bosses we must fight for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud, war's always been the bosses'